ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live Studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey, Dash here for a special Monday edition of Oilers Live. We've got the regular cast of crew with us here. Before we get started, I'd just like to introduce everybody. And before I do that, I'd like to say thank you to Edmonton Sports Talk. We love being part of that family and part of the Friends of Edmonton Sports Talk family. We don't like going an episode without saying thanks to Dusty and Maddie and Eric and the OGs over there. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. And we appreciate it. Round the table for those that are listening and not watching, I am Dash, at Dash in the Park. The regular cast of characters with me here. We got Ryan Lotzberg, our head writer, editor, head content creator. I don't know if I missed any titles in there, Ryan. How you doing?
I think you got pretty much all of them. Good.
You forgot producer. You forgot producer today.
And tonight's producer. He wears many hats, including a very nice Connor McDavid toque tonight. Below him, if we're going around counterclockwise, our new very good friend, Kevin McCurdy, at Kevin McCurdy. I think you can find him. How you doing tonight, bud?
I'm doing all right.
Thanks for coming again.
Of course.
Last and not least, the fourth of our horsemen here for tonight, Patrick, our Oilers fanatic. Rumor has it he's got more YouTube followers than Connor McDavid. So we're really privileged to have him here tonight.
That might be from the Too Much podcast.
That's where I heard it. That's exactly where I heard it. They said you had 12. They said you had 12.5 million followers, which is pretty incredible. You got more followers than McDavid has dollars. Here we are tonight, boys. I heard there's some big news. Isaac Howard's on waivers. Did I miss anything else? No? Oh.
He was sent down.
Oh, yeah. Whatever's going on. Sent to the minors. Anyway. Obviously, some pretty big news. Connor McDavid resigns. We all know what was going to happen. We've been talking about it for a long time. Barn Burner podcast, Overdrive, with all due respect, suck it. Connor McDavid's an Oiler. We always knew he was going to be an Oiler. What blew me away, obviously, is the same thing that dropped everybody's jaws today is the amount that he re-signed for. Everybody's opinion on this, I'm sure we all got a long one, so let's have them. Lotzi, what did you think when you first heard that number, 12.5?
I couldn't believe it was 12.5. We had a pretty good inclination it was going to be a short-term deal, and I knew that was going to come with a lower number, but 12.5. The dude didn't even take a raise. He's got 1,000 points as an Oiler, and he's taken the team to back-to-back Cup finals, led the playoffs in scoring over the past 3 years by 14 points over anybody else, and Buddy didn't even take a raise. If you look at it by percentage of cap hit that he's taking up, he actually took a cut for 2 years here. So that just tells you where his mind is at in terms of trying to get this team a W and to trying to lift a 30-pound silver trophy over his head.
I mean, if the cap's $104 million next year, and that's when that contract kicks in, people keep forgetting this is 3 more years. That could have been $21 million. Connor McDavid just left $8 million on the table, Kevin McCurdy. How do you feel about that?
I think that this is a man that wants to win the Stanley Cup, and I think that he clearly trusts the management because he put the team's cap over his own money situation. That tells me he has a lot of faith in Jeff Jackson. He has a lot of faith in Stan Bowman. And honestly, what I'm seeing so far, most recently from Bowman and Jackson, is he has good reason to put that trust in them. So I think with the entire situation developing, they're going to be able to do some good things with that cap, and they're going to be able to make a monster out of a team that was already a monster.
Well, let's put it this way. Connor McDavid's done his part.
Yep.
So it's up to the Jeff and Stan team, however they like to be addressed, even though Paul Coffey's their boss, apparently. They've all done a tidy bit of work. in the last little bit. And I'm not just talking about these extensions. It's a cry for youth, right? We got all of a sudden Savoy for what feels like not much, and Howard and guys that, are NHL ready, and a team that actually has some youth and some potential and some new energy. But I tell you, I don't think there's anything more that's going to make me want to run through a brick wall for Connor McDavid than to hear what I just heard. And I got to go to work tomorrow. I can't imagine how the players are going to feel about it behind him and beside him on that bench. Hey, Patrick?
Well, I think the comment that Stan Bowen was saying in his press conference that he heard from the guys that were at Rogers Place today was like, what a leader. I mean, I said in my video today, I think this has got to be the biggest thing that Connor McDavid has ever done, like taking the leadership, taking everything on his back. I mean, he's literally putting less money where his mouth is to show this team that he's all about winning. I mean, this is something that you don't see pretty much any other player in the National Hockey League do. He's the best player in the league, and he just took a pay cut, as Lotzie pointed out, on this new contract. I mean, if this doesn't show you that he wants to win and he's going to do anything he can to put a Stanley Cup in this city, then I don't know. And anyone who's been dissing him or saying bad things about him over the past few months, like I was saying today in a post, you better be apologizing to that guy, because he was just, the captain of the year, as the faithful fanatic just put there in the chat there. I mean, that sums it up perfectly. Captain of the franchise. Like, that's just an amazing thing done by Connor McDavid today.
In 20 years, you can rename the Mark Messier trophy the Connor McDavid trophy, for all I'm concerned. Like, I heard a lot of, he's pulling a Crosby today. Sure. I'm not taking anything away from Crosby. He did do this, and salaries were different in Crosby's time. But like, real math, peeps, real math, 18 million, 16 million, like we're saying he's left 8 million per. That's 16 plus Lotzie's, saying league 12.5 isn't worth 12.5 in the next 2 years. It's not.
No. And that's an elite player, $8 million that you can add to this team.
That's right.
Or with some retention, 2 $4 million players. I mean, like,
that's right.
Yeah, he's done something amazing for this team.
I don't think Sidney Crosby ever left $20 million on the table in 2 years. Maybe he's left $20 million over his career, but Connor ain't done yet. And let me go to some stranger. We love him. He's an absolute regular, and I agree with him on 98.5% of the things, but I'm not sure I agree with him here. He says, I don't know about faith or whether, and I'm sure he's referring to what Connor said and the fact that he's not sure that it's faith in Jackson and Bowman. And I think I know some stranger well enough to know that that's the context. He said he's simply giving them a couple of more years to make it happen. Yeah, fair. But I guarantee you in 3 years, he's going to give us a couple of more years to make it happen. And 3 years after that, he'll make it a couple of more years to make it happen. What the best thing for the Oilers is for Connor McDavid to keep signing a string of 2 and 3 year deals. And he'll do it twice and we'll be conditioned. We'll all be like, all right, there we go. There's our next 2 year team friendly deal. All right, there we go. There's our next 3 year team friendly deal. And it won't surprise us. All this he's running for the hills if we don't win the cup in 3 years. Bullshit. I'm not going to listen to it. I won't listen to it. It's bullshit. There's no way he's leaving his best friend. There's after the contracts that have been signed right now, you guys, look around the league. We got our core. Nobody likes it in Edmonton. It's too cold there. Nobody wants to live up north. It's the most northern team. That place is a dump. Oh, except Ike Howard forced a trade here. And now we have Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Evan Bouchard, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and I'll argue with anybody right now, Darnell Nurse.
Jake Walman.
And Jake Walman on value contracts. The core for the next 5 and Hyman. Hyman's on the best deal in the league maybe now. 5.5 for what Hyman does? He comes back 100%. He's one of the best contracts in the league. We got 6-7 core epic players signed at value contracts in this dump of a tire fire, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Hey, what do you think, Rye?
You're definitely right. And the piece that I put out today, I'll put up the QR code for it in just a minute here. But I talked about how good of a position the Oilers are in now to build a team around McDavid, because 2 years from now, the cap is going to, okay, I gotta get past this season as well, but next year it's going to be 104 million. The year after that, it's going to be 113 million dollars, right? So, and McDavid is locked under contract at his current rate until we get to 113 million, right? So I believe the Oilers are going to have something like $41.8 million to build a team around the core that's already locked up for the 27-28 season. Like, that's an incredible amount of space, and it gives Bowman a lot of flexibility over the next 2 seasons. Now, of course, that 41 million isn't going to come all at once, right? It's going to gradually come to us over the next 2 years. But we're going to have a chance to add a couple of impact players and to round out the roster with some quality players.
I want to add to that too, because Dave Pagnotta was on Hello Hockey on Saturday, and he had made reference to the fact that there's I don't know, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but I think I'm pretty accurate here, a general understanding, perhaps, that there's a little more cap to play with next year than what we're predicting in the 113. Like, they're starting to prepare for the fact that there might be 3 or 4 more million than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was some speculation that the agents were hearing a number like 107 instead of 104, and then an even bigger number than 114 for this.
That's what I meant. Yeah. Thanks for the correction. Yeah. So, I mean, what, like, Kev, you just sent us a clip before this about, you can get into the other elements of that conversation as well if you'd like at any point in time tonight. Pick your moment. But the clip you sent was of Merrick and Stoff having a little chat earlier today, and I think they were talking, and they broke the Walman contract amount on the air when they were there. So, they mentioned that potentially $29 million in cap next year. Well, if this whole agent chat or GM understanding that's going on, and potentially up to $32 million for the Oilers in cap space next year. What, Patrick, what would that mean to the Oilers to, like, be in a position where you've got 7 of your core and best players under value contracts and still have potentially $32 million to go out and either extend your goalies, sign your goalie, find your goalie and sign your goalie, or what have you?
Well, it obviously puts you in the ultimate position to fill the whatever remaining needs you find that your team still needs. Like, if we're still talking about Skinner and Pickard, not able to get them just over that last step, maybe it's another goaltender that comes in. Maybe we find that the defense, maybe Ekholm regresses a bit, and we maybe need one more top 4 defenseman. That's another guy you can bring in there. Another top 6 forward. Maybe the younger guys aren't ready to contribute at the level that we need them to yet. So it just gives you the money that they don't normally have. Like, every year at the trade deadline, we're talking about, well, if we can get this team to retain a little bit and we trade a second and a fourth, and guess what? We don't have to give up 6 million draft picks at the trade deadline. We'll have the cap space where you can actually just bring somebody in. We're not paying someone to retain on a player and stuff like that. So it just puts them in the ultimate position to find those final pieces to get them over the top.
And looking at the depth around, I'll save a little piece for Call Me Crazy later to talk about our defense and the value of them. But I would argue that it's pretty deep, or as deep as it's ever been, especially at the top 4. After the top 4, we got a whole crap load of 6s and 7s, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Regula's starting to come around and look really good. And you still got a Kulak, and you still got an Emberson, and you still, you know what I mean? Like,
you got a Lepinen too, right? And
yeah.
Like, look at him through camp. He's not ready yet, but give him 20 minutes a night in Baco, and
yeah. Absolutely, right? So, there's depth, there's youth, there's stuff to build around. I think I heard them talking about how many forwards are still on the books next year, and I think it's 10. That's you only need a couple of more key guys to fill that up. So you go grab a couple of those key guys, and we can throw around some ideas of who that might be later. But shore up your goaling, go extend Ekholm, who we also didn't just have on that list. Unless we're including him in the top 4 right now, which I guess we are. But
Well, according to the skate yesterday, it looked like Alec Regula is going to get an opportunity there with Jake Walman probably missing the season opener because he was skating with Darnell Nurse in a pairing. So not to say that he's going to stay there for any long period of time, but if he can kind of go in there and audition and have a good audition, I mean, he's not immediately a top 4 defenseman, but if you have a guy that you can put in there on spot duty and like Troy Stetcher last year provide solid D on entry-level contract, I mean, you're laughing.
Yeah, for sure. And I wouldn't mind switching gears a little bit here, guys. So maybe I'll go around the horn one more time on anything else on, McDavid and Walman today that you thought you might have wanted to have said already and haven't. And then maybe we'll move on and talk about the future a little bit and how this might up to this season coming up. The idea that the team is really looking for a fast start, that potentially the dynamic duo is asked to be together in order to go nuclear right from the beginning and not repeat what's happened the last few years. So quick around the horn on the signings or the moves or anything else today, Ryan?
One quick thought that'll kind of be a good segue into that from my perspective anyway. Listening to Bowman's interview with Stauffer today on Oilers Now, he was talking about how McDavid and Draisaitl, both of them, were up in the press box watching some of the preseason games at home that they weren't playing, and other players might usually not be as visible or as focused on the game in that situation, but McDavid was, right? And one of the thoughts I had for why it was taking him so long to sign is because I think he needed to get some kind of sense on how some of these young guys are going to be looking going forward. Can they contribute to winning now? And are they going to be able to contribute to winning in the future? Well, I think he's seen enough out of some guys. Matt Savoy had an excellent camp, even though he didn't put up a lot of points. He showed that he's more than ready to play both ends of the ice. And I think some of that offense will pop towards the end of the year. Ike Howard got better and better as the preseason went on, and it looks like he's got some potential as well. And we were just talking about Regula. He had a fantastic camp as well. Noah Philp, a guy looks like he can contribute right now. 4 points in 4 games in the preseason. So there's some good things happening down in the prospect pipeline, which we couldn't say at this time last year. So I think that was a big factor in McDavid wanting to stay for even if it's only a couple years for now.
Yeah, well said. Kev?
Yeah, I like how plugged in those guys were. I was listening to that Stauffer segment earlier, and it was really apparent how much those guys care and how into the situation they are. Like Stauffer said that most captains and whatever guys, they wouldn't be hanging out with the media, especially with McDavid's contract looming. They'd be in the player room or they would be elsewhere, but instead they were up basically right beside the media, even asking some of the media opinions about players that were on the ice and what their thoughts were, and they really were gathering multiple perspectives. So I think that says a lot to their character as leaders. I think they were it's really important that they see what the future of the organization is, and clearly McDavid was comfortable enough with that to give up 2 additional years of his life at a hefty discount in order to make it happen. So, what's not to like?
Yep, absolutely nothing. Patrick?
Well, yeah, you just got to love how meticulous Connor and even Leon, as you guys were saying, are. Like, I think those guys are really the gold standard for leaders in the National Hockey League today. They're arguably the 2 best players in the NHL. And they're not just the best players on the ice. They're the best players for what they do in every asset of the game. They're continually trying to get better. They're trying to find ways to make their teammates better. They're bringing guys like Draisaitl loves pods. Not like on any other team, is pods going to have an opportunity to play in the top 6? Probably not. But Draisaitl sees his value, and I just love how those guys see the game, how they read the game, and we're just so fortunate to have those two guys leading our team. And this is just a dream come true day. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say on that one.
Yeah, on a day that I never thought I could love Connor McDavid any more than I already did.
Yeah.
I can't believe that he's done something like this for our franchise. Like I said, I think that I would run through a brick wall for him, and I think that team will now too. So let's use that for the segue, because that does put us into this year and how the team is going to react and how the team is going to start. I also listened to that Stauffer interview with Stan Bowman, and something that I disagreed with. I don't know if I want to say it was concerning to me, because I believe that Stan Bowman probably has to say that. But when he kept, like, quite literally 7 times over the course of the two, the presser and then the interview with Stauffer, said, like, this doesn't change anything. I kind of call BS. I think this changes a lot. This puts a potential extra $6 million of money at play. Now, if he was going to take a discount, maybe it's an extra 4 or 3 or whatever, but that's the money we need to extend Skinner, if that's the choice, or Ekholm or what have you. He just gave us a really epic player for free. Thoughts of how this affects everything going into the next season, how they start, how the players react, how the team reacts, and what you guys think in that regard, Ryan?
Right. Obviously, there's a sense of excitement, right? Like, best player in the world just took a big discount to extend his time with your team. So, of course, there's going to be some excitement. And the schedule doesn't look exactly terrifying in the first month of the season. So, there's a good chance that we get off to a good start, which would be well needed. But just to play devil's advocate, there's a chance that there's a big sigh of relief and there's a little bit of a letdown. They're not playing tense. That could be a good thing or a bad thing, right? So I don't necessarily think it means we're going to go 15-0 like the Jets did to start last season, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing either. It's just, I don't see it as a big factor. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I thought of a nifty segue there for Kevin, and I think I lost it in my little ADHD brain right now. But so I guess I'll just go to Kevin instead of being witty about it.
You know what? Let me think about that a little more and come back to me. I know that's a little counterintuitive, but
No, that's good, because maybe I'll remember what I was going to be funny about, and then
dude,
we'll go
we're a
back to
bad
that.
combination. We're such a
Hey?
bad
Oh, I
combination.
think we'll be great. And Patrick, your thoughts going into this season? The dynamic duo, the nuclear duo. We're going to need some secondary scoring for that to work, in my opinion, long term. Unless it's cannon out of the gate. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if we go and then we have the nuclear option going and only one line is going, then we're just the same team as always. We got to finally see the other 3 lines scoring on a consistent basis. I think we had that pretty successfully a few years back. I think everyone on the team, or at least had like 10 goals or something like that. But we have to get back to having that depth where everyone's contributing. We're not relying on, we're down 3-1 going into the third period. So it's the McDavid and Draisaitl show for the whole third period, trying to get us back into the hockey game. Cause I think that's part of how those guys get burnt out, because we're using them so often to try and catch back up in games. So if we can get off to a good start, I think that'll be huge. I don't think we need to go 15-0. Like you said, Lotzi, I mean, that's probably going to set an unrealistic expectation, and that really didn't help the Winnipeg Jets last year either. But if we can just be steady for 10-5 or something like that, you got something to build on and find out what you have in some of those guys. I mean, maybe we find out certain pieces aren't working, and you got to find the rhythm in the lines and what combinations work best. I know some people already don't like Draisaitl, McDavid, and Frederick together, so maybe a new guy gets an audition up there. So yeah, a lot of things. But if they can get off to a solid start, I think that'll be a good runway there for the rest of the season.
Follow-up question, Patrick, and I'll give Kevin a little bit more time to grind. Key to all of this, and I think it's been said in the chat several times, some stranger included, the key to this is going to be goaltending. I think like that's to me right now And I'm a huge Skinner supporter. I really am. I just think he's the type of goalie that's the product of the team in front of him. He doesn't really steal you a lot of games, maybe 1 or 2 a year. But that said, the best goalies in the league only steal you 4 or 5 or 6 games a year nowadays. So that's a thin difference these days. And ultimately, he's taken us to the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row. Yeah, he's missed some games. Yeah, he's been up and down. What goalie isn't? They're all bloody voodoo. And we got another one, right? There's 3 that are perfect in the league, and to get one of those guys, you got to pay $12 million a year for that, and we pay 1/6 of that for our goalie. So I'll take it. The thing is he's going to be a key to all of this, and what I love hearing is, sure, he's lost weight, sure, he's more agile. He's in a contract year, and he's got a goal to make the Olympics. So how do you see what's your Skinner take on how all of this rolls out?
Well, I think the Skinner thing is he's just got to find consistency. Like you said, we don't need him to be a Vezina caliber goaltender, but there's just too many ups and downs with him. Overall, like, I'm a big Skinner supporter as well. I want to see the guy succeed. I want to see him get a new contract, but all the pressure's on his shoulders this year. He's in a contract year, like you said, so it's up to him to perform. I mean, Calvin Pickard, he's coming off a fantastic season, and I expect him to be a solid backup once again for the team, but there's really not a lot of pressure on him. I think if the Oilers were to win the Stanley Cup this year, Calvin Pickard's probably going to retire, maybe do another 1-year deal or something like that. So really, for the goaltending, it's Stuart Skinner having to show that he can get a new contract. He's turned a corner here, and we'll see how it goes in Bakersfield, but he's got a guy down there who was a solid goaltender 2 years ago, and Connor Ingram's going to be looking to try and see if he can break his way up into the NHL. And maybe at some point it's Ingram and Pickard, not necessarily Skinner and Ingram, if Skinner can't find his game here. And I'm not trying to knock Skinner. I hope he does find his game there, but I think it does add some more pressure coming up from the bottom if Connor Ingram can get it going. Obviously, that's going to be a thing that would be further on in the season. Connor Ingram isn't going to be up here in 12 games, but there's pressure coming from multiple different areas for Stuart Skinner here, and that's 3 goalies that are going to be unrestricted free agents in the summer, so they're all looking to make an impact this year. And we know Connor Ingram has the connection with head coach Chris Knobloch as well, so Skinner needs to step up here, and I think consistency is his biggest thing that he needs to find this year.
Well, hopefully they can both channel their inner Imperial Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
I agree with all of that for sure. I do think goaltending is going to be a big part of this. And what Ingram did for me was gave me a little bit of reassurance that if we get an injury somewhere, that we'll be okay.
Yeah. Well, they needed something better than Matt Tompkins, I think, for sure. If one of those guys went down, like Matt Tompkins is serviceable, but if Skinner or Pickard go down, I don't want Matt Tompkins being our third option.
Well, now it can be Matt Tompkins or Ingram, or
Yeah.
I mean, there's options, right? And that's kind of my point. All right, I've probably given Kevin like 17 points to remember, unless he's been writing all this stuff down.
I started writing them down because it's leaving my brain every time that every time that we change subjects there.
You and me both, brother.
The first thing I want to say is the reason Bowman is saying that it doesn't affect his calculus is because McDavid's cap hit this year was always going to be $12.5 million. There's never any variance from that. So this has been the plan since day one, whatever they're doing this season. Where it changes his plan fundamentally is next season and the following season, because we're probably penciling some number between 14.5 and 18 million into their chart, expecting that's what the cap hit was going to be. So now they have, again, between, 2 million and 6 million more dollars available over what they were probably projecting. And that's where it changes. So I understand where he's coming from when he says it doesn't really change much.
I would still argue that it does, because now knowing a move you can make this year at this year's deadline gives you the opportunity to have $6 million more in cap space next year. Not, instead of getting a rental, you can get a guy with a 3-year contract.
And the thing we got to be careful about is we're talking 3 years down the road here, right? At that time, we're going to have to be able to prepare for another McDavid extension.
Right.
Is he going to be willing to stay at 12.5 for another
No.
contract year? I don't think so. Like, McDavid's going to get his bag eventually. Even a team-friendly deal will still look like him getting his bag 3 years from now.
Even if
So
he's,
like,
that's
it's
right.
like, well, I said we'll have $41.8 million to round out the roster for 27-28, but it would be really wise of Bowman and the Oilers to leave a little bit of that space open to be able to better absorb Connor's raise in 28-29. So you
Yep.
got to be careful. Yes, we have lots of cap space to think about in the future, and there's lots of guys that we could think about bringing in at all sorts of different positions, but we can't hamstring ourselves for the next Connor deal. And Bouchard's up in 4 years too, so that's going to be another problem down the road, right? So yes, it's exciting. It's a team-friendly deal, but it doesn't solve all cap situations in the future.
I always harken back to the days of Detroit when like Lidstrom and Yzerman took $6 million a year and nobody was getting more than that. God, I hope that sets this precedent.
Well,
Kevin,
I was going to
wouldn't
say
have
another
interrupted.
thing. Yeah.
I
Oh,
wouldn't
sorry,
have
go ahead.
interrupted Kevin if I knew he didn't write these things down for the record. So I'll let him get back to that next point. But I was going to say, I can see in your body language, Patrick, you want to say something as well. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say too, like, if you're talking for star players in contract term, probably most players are going to be taking short-term contracts. We actually really shouldn't have to worry too much about guys signing 4 and 5 and 6-year deals. If you're the really talented guys, you're probably going to be doing the short-term deals like Connor. I mean, so if it's someone that we're worrying about re-signing in 3 years because we got them in addition to Connor, it might not be as big of an issue, but it depends on the talent of the player, if it's a depth guy or if it's a top 6 guy or whatever like that.
Yep. Back to my boy Kev.
Yeah, and I think just the other thing, we kind of already touched on it, but McDavid, people are going to want to run through a wall for this guy. Like the fan base wants to run through a wall. The team, I'm sure, is just like a bunch of people being held back with dog leashes right now. Just
It's like the
let
WWE security guards. Like they're
just let me at him, right? Like. I think the team is, if they weren't ready to go before, and I was sort of wondering if this would be the outcome. And for this reason alone, McDavid has said several times they need a better start this year. Well, what better way to get a better start than for your captain to say, I'm here to stay, boys? Like that's, yeah, it's not an 8-year deal, but they have 3 more years of McDavid and they've got 3 more chances to make an absolute statement. And I don't think with the team that we're building, they're going to miss. But I guess we'll just sort of see how that shapes up.
Yep, I agree. Where do you think this season's going to start out? Like, are they going to come out like a cannon shot?
I think so. Yeah, I think if you saw a 600 or 700 winning percentage, I wouldn't be surprised. I think it'll be better than half, and that's all it needs to be. It does. You're not going to win every game. It's the NHL stuff. Some nights it just doesn't go your way. But this team is a veteran team at this point. They have lots of experience to go with all that new guys. If they have to, even if they only play the vets because the new guys aren't getting it done, they still have lots of ways to win hockey games. So I see them coming out flying. They're ready to go. The faster they can get back to the cup, the happier those guys will be. So that's kind of the course for me.
Yep, I would agree. What's your take on the goaltending? How do you feel? Skinner's gonna, come out of this better off or worse off, or are we already know what we have?
I think that Skinner's going to have some pressure on him. I think to Patrick's point, I think Pickard doesn't really have a ton of pressure on him, right? If Ingrid comes up and upends Pickard, I mean, that's just the way he is, or way it is. It's been like that forever. If you're a permanent backup goalie for a squad, sometimes you get bumped out by the next best thing, and whether that's Ingram or somebody else in the Oilers organization or some external party that we've yet to identify, we'll see. And then Skinner also, like, he knows what's up. like you said, it's a contract year for him. He knows exactly what's at stake here. Is he going to make another contract at all? Is he going to make a contract where um, he's being paid a starting goalie rate? Is he going to make a contract where he gets relegated to backup wages? Like, those are all potential outcomes. And Bob Stauffer with in the Stan Bowman, or sorry, in the Jeff Marek segment earlier, basically said that, left no doubt that the Oilers are looking for goalies, right? Like there was such a knee-jerk statement about that the Oilers, he needs a contract next year, but the Oilers are looking this year. Like it was just one of those things that he just snuck in the side door, but it was so matter of fact that you have to, I may be reading too much into it, but I would
I don't think so.
run to the bank with that one. I think the team knows what's up with goaltending, and whether they develop it internally or they try and find their next, Lankin and Blackwood archetype. That's somebody who's underappreciated and ready to pop. The one thing I don't really see them doing is taking a swing on a a superstar in terms of like a Saros. I know he had a bit of a rough year last year, but he was playing behind an awful team, or a Swayman or a Sorokin even. I don't know if the team has the cap to make those deals happen, but if they find the guy that's just ready to break even and break out in the league, then I think that's been the Oilers' style lately, and they've been honestly really good at it. So I see either Skinner rising to the occasion or being pushed out of the way is kind of how I see it playing out.
Yep, incredibly fair. Anything else you want to go through that you wrote down before I do a quick little radio reset?
No, I just wanted to, though. I guess I do want to comment on Walman's contract. The AFP Analytics comparables was at $6.7 million, and for one less year. So I really like this contract for the team. I think it's probably going to age well as long as he doesn't have injury issues. He's been. I really liked what I've seen out of him, even in the few months that we've had him, and I think he was stylistically a good fit with this team. I think he's going to have a home here, and people are going to learn to love him even more than we already do in short order.
Yeah, I think he just add to that. I agree. He does a little bit of everything, and he does a little bit of everything well. He's just a bit of an asshole and a bit mean and a bit tough, and can shoot the puck and can play the right side, for a lefty, and might be able to fill in on the power play if need be. And I think he just checks a lot of boxes, and I have no issues with that at all. I mean, if we're looking at this year and looking backwards, 7x7 might have sounded like a lot of, like I'm getting a lot of texts and DMs from people outside of this market and friends of mine back in Saskatchewan that are going, Stan Bowman spoiled the pot today by announcing a massive overpay to Walman in the same day that Connor took, this discount. And I'm like, I guess you just haven't watched Walman play enough is really my answer there. So I'll leave that at that for now. I think we'll probably come around to it. But if you're watching on YouTube and enjoying the chat and participating, thank you. We appreciate it. Get in there. It's got a little life of its own going right now. It's made me giggle a few times. Thank you for that. If you're listening on Edmonton Sports Talk or live on any of our other platforms, this is Oilers Live. I'm Dash in the Park. I'm being joined by Ryan Lutzberg, head writer, and a whole bunch of other things at Heavy Hockey, Kevin McCurdy, and Patrick, the Oilers fanatic. I wouldn't mind, because I haven't been around in a while, and I've missed you guys. And I miss when you call me names, especially you, Ryan Lutzberg. So I thought we'd get back to what I used to like to do and do a little round of Call Me Crazy. I've queued you guys up on a few because I've been thinking about them all day. I think I'll just pick my favorites, and if there's any that pop up to you guys at the end, go ahead and throw one out as well. But I alluded to this earlier. Connor McDavid has done his job, flat out, period, exclamation mark, drop the mic. He wants to win. The team has to follow. I strongly believe. I listened to the EST afternoons, and Hernan and Joaquin argued this a little bit. Hernan thought that this took the pressure off of Stan Bowman, and I completely agree with Joaquin in the fact that I think that this puts more pressure on Stan Bowman than anybody maybe in the history of the Edmonton Oilers, really. Like, I mean, when have we wanted to win a cup more? Did Slats have the same type of pressure? So call me crazy, but Stan Bowman now has more pressure than any Oiler in franchise history. Patrick?
I don't think you're crazy at all. And if Stan Bowman does not deliver a Stanley Cup to this team in the next 3 years, he should absolutely be fired. Connor McDavid, the best player in the game, just gave you the best contract ever for the best player in the league. I mean, there's no excuse not to. I mean, it's not. He obviously can't win it for the players, but he has to put them in that position to succeed. And if you can't do it with, I don't know when they're going to do it if they can't get it done over these next 3 years. So yeah, no, absolutely.
I'd say put a little more oomph and emphasis into his dig in, didn't he?
Yeah.
Kevin McCurdy, call me crazy, but Stan Bowman now has more pressure than any Oiler in franchise history.
I would say it's pretty close to that. It's definitely got a pressure to deliver. But the one thing I think I would kind of say also is I am really impressed with the work that Michael Parcati and his crew is doing. Their analytics squad, people can talk shit all they want, but their analytics squad is clearly getting it done. There's numbers and people that they're turning up that are diamonds in the rough. And if you can do that on a reliable basis, that is game changing for what the Oilers used to be. We used to love to take swings on, has-been guys that are at near the end of their useful life and have been used up, and they're not doing that right now. Every guy they bring in is a fit or is either a culture fit or a skills fit, or in most cases both. And you have to wonder what else they're cooking up behind the scenes to go after this year, right? Seeing a few people throw the name Alex Tuch out there. So if they can start landing those big pieces to fill in the gaps that are left, I think this team, he might have a lot of pressure on him, but I think this is him rising to the occasion like the Blue Jays did yesterday.
Oh, nice one. I like what you did there. Look, here's what else adds to this for me. I feel like, and I just saw that this isn't a prop that I planned on, but it was sitting in front of me. I feel like Connor McDavid just went like this. I only got $20 in my wallet, so this maybe doesn't work well, but maybe that's the equivalent to $8 million to that guy. But he just said, here, Stan, take my money and go use it wisely. That's a lot of pressure. Ryan Lotzberg, call me crazy, but I think Stan Bowman now has more pressure than any other in franchise history.
And just to play devil's advocate, and just because I love doing it, I am going to call you crazy here, because I mean, obviously Bowman does have pressure in this situation. Like, you guys are correct in saying that, because McDavid did just do him a big favor. But at some point, McDavid's got to win the Stanley Cup, right? It's not Bowman's not on the ice. They've been to back-to-back Cup finals, and they haven't been able to get it done. They've ran into a strong Panthers team both times, and McDavid had one goal in the 25 Cup finals. One goal. Right, so I'm not saying they lost because of Connor. Let's not get it twisted. Not one guy on that Oilers team was at the level they needed to be to win the Stanley Cup this past season. And in 24, they got off to too slow of a start as a group, and they had too big of a hole to overcome. But Bowman has his pressure in the summer. Then there'll be lots of pressure to build a winning team around McDavid and Draisaitl and the core that exists here. But once April and May and June roll around, the pressure's fully on McDavid. And I'd argue that after this move, saying, okay, here, build a winner around me, take some money to do it, one could view that as a pretty cocky move. And you better back it up in the Cup finals if you get there again. So that puts a lot of pressure on himself.
Fair to say that's why we play the game, Ryan?
Yeah, exactly. You can have the best roster on paper out there, but doesn't mean you're going to win.
All right. Sagging off of that, I think let's talk about here this $20, the $8 million that Connor McDavid just gave Stan Bowman. Stan said in his press earlier today that him and Connor have had a few conversations, and none of it has ever been about term or dollar. I believe him. Because why would it ever be about term or dollar? Here's your blank contract, Connor. Write down whatever term and dollar you want, and whatever no movement clause you require, and we'll sign the bottom. That's the negotiation. There is none. There literally is none. You know, I think if they're going to have those types of conversations, you know, yeah, he wanted to see that there was youth. Yeah, he wanted to see what was coming up the pipeline and that it was going to be sufficient. But I don't think for 2 seconds that Connor McDavid in those conversations didn't give him some suggestions. And there's been some rumors out there. There's been some lobbying ever since the All-Star game last year, apparently. Ryan Lotzberg, call me crazy, but I think Connor McDavid just left $7 or $8 million on the table for David Pastrnak to come to Edmonton.
I'm going to call you crazy once again here. And just to put some context to it, Pastrnak, $11.25 million from now until the conclusion of the 29-30 season. So he's got 5 years left at 11.25. Now, Boston would have to go into a full-blown rebuild in order to make that happen. I just don't think that's in their DNA as a culture, like as a franchise. I know they got rid of Marchand last year, but they still got some pieces there with Pastrnak and McAvoy and Swayman to kind of build around. So I don't think they're ready to go into a full rebuild. And the Oilers aren't going to have that cap space for another year or two, right? It's going to take them a little bit here to get that kind of cap space. And they might not get enough at once to be able to bring in an $11.25 million player, nor do I think they have the tradable assets to give the Bruins in a Pastrnak deal. So I think that particular player might be a little off limits, but you're not wrong to say that there's now some room for the Oilers to go big game hunting, as a lot of people like to say.
Hey, we got nothing but assets. We've been talking about this, okay? Nothing but assets. You know, I saw in the chat earlier that they're going to have to trade Hyman. I bet you Boston would be interested in somebody like that. Anyways. Kevin McCurdy, call me crazy, but I think Connor McDavid just left $7 million on the table for David Pastrnak, his buddy from last year's All-Star game, to come to Edmonton and be on his line.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Lotzi's answer on this and call you crazy on this one. And that's just because I don't think the cap works. Now, if they could somehow be convinced to turn Darnell Nurse into David Pastrnak, then maybe that would be. But I don't think if you combined all of the first-round picks of the entire league into one trade, I don't think that would be enough to get that deal done. So it's maybe in this year's draft because it's super deep. But the point is, I don't see it, but I do see them going big game hunting for somebody with a little less term. And maybe a little bit less cap hit. And I think that as long as that person can put the puck in the net reliably, then I think that that's what they're looking for, or keep the puck out of the net reliably, depending on which position they're looking for. So we'll see.
Well, full-fledged honesty here. I'm just like your good friend Alan Mitchell, and the Boston Bruins are my second favorite team, and Pasternak's my favorite player outside of the Edmonton Oilers. So there's just a crap load of selfishness in these loaded ass question here I'm throwing out. And I understand that, you guys, but potentially the argument is, fill in the blank. Sidney Crosby's been moved around, as the faithful fanatic just said in the chat, or, whoever that player might be. But Patrick, Oilers fanatic, thank you for being a fan, but call me crazy. I think Connor McDavid just left $7 or $8 million on the table for Pasta to come to Edmonton.
Well, you're crazy, so come on. It's been established, but yeah, no, I think there is money there, obviously, for a player we've heard talked about going back to July, and Pittsburgh being that team. Brian Rust, obviously, he's not on the same level as a Pastrnak or anything like that, but he is a guy. I think he's 5.5, if I remember correctly, on his deal with 3 years to go. So that's a much easier contract for the Edmonton Oilers to fit in with the cap space they have. I think he's somebody you can slide into the top 6. I don't know if he necessarily plays with McDavid, but I think he's a player the Oilers have already shown interest in. I know a few insiders were talking about him going back to July 1st. So I think Brian Rust is one of the guys that's out there, but not David Pastrnak. Unfortunately, I would love to have him as well, but I'm afraid you're crazy on that one.
Yeah, you guys are probably all right. Look, if that is a fill in the blank, let's just do another round the horn. I know lots of you were looking at some information earlier on some of the upcoming prospects, or sorry, well, not prospects as in young players, but prospects to be, targets for deadline acquisitions this year, or potential free agents. So I'll start with you. Thoughts anywhere, go anywhere you want with it, really. Like, is there anybody that intrigues you? Is there anybody that you think it actually might happen? What do they want to do with the money, that the $20 that he just got given?
Yeah, I mean, getting deadline deals done this year might be a little difficult just because they don't have a ton of cap space. But I wonder about a guy like Adrian Kempe from the Kings once free agency rolls around. I know there was a report earlier today that said that they are not close on a contract extension. So there's a chance that he pries loose from the Kings. Martin Nikash is another guy that's kind of interesting for potential UFA next year, but the Avs are in the same situation they were last year with Rantanen. They might have a player that they don't think they can re-sign, so they might look to trade him before the deadline. He's at 6.5 this year, so that's a guy that you can maybe squeeze in somehow. Aside from that, though, I gotta refresh my list and go to guys that have multiple years left on their deals. So, digest those ones for a couple minutes here while I look at some other options.
Kevin, you mentioned Alec Tuck earlier. I mean, when this guy was drafted, he was a future captain. He was, nothing but character. I mean, that sounds like a perfect bottom 6 guy. Now.
I would say that he's a second line right winger even now, right? Like, he's had some up and down struggles, but he's in the last year of a 7-year, $4.75 million contract. And the thing going for Alex Tuck is he is 6'4" and 215 pounds. So if you want a little bit of size in your top 6 to really to beef it up a little bit, so to speak, I think that's a potentially fantastic fit at a manageable cap hit, especially once the trade deadline rolls around. And maybe you get lucky and you are able to move another piece with it that is taking up a little bit too much cap hit and make it work somehow.
It's funny that we've got Podsy and a moose like Draisaitl and McDavid at 6'3" and Hyman at a 6'2" or 3 and 215, and Frederick playing in the top at 6'4", 225, and you're talking about adding size. That's a huge top 6. I
know it is. I know it's a huge top 6.
There's no Yamamoto's crawling around out there anymore.
There's a Savoy that's going to be up there, right?
And
he's he's Yamamoto but beefier, right? Like that's really what his play style is. He's a crowbar with skates, and I think there's a place for that. But the Oilers have gotten into it with the roughest, toughest team in the league the last 2 seasons in a row. And, from a certain perspective, if you can't beat them, join them. I think they need to be a little bit grittier and a little bit meaner. And they have to be able to give teams like Florida and Tampa enough of a hard time that McDavid is a little bit more free to do the things that McDavid needs to do. Because going back to your comment from before, McDavid has not scored a lot in the finals, but he has faced an obnoxious amount of resistance from Florida in that time. He just has had both him and Leon have had no room to move. Nothing. And unless the Oilers can give back that same thing to whatever team tenfold, then that's going to continue to happen. Yeah, I think somebody remembers me calling him Chunky Yamo from the last time, and Chunky Yamo indeed.
I was only half listening, so I think what you said there was they're getting Evander Kane and Milan Lucic at the deadline.
Yeah, I'm going to throw up in my trash can now. Excuse me.
Patrick, thoughts on all of this?
Well, let's not bring back Lucic, okay?
or Kane. Jesus.
Evander Kane I could entertain, but let's not. That's a call me crazy. We're talking about bringing back Milan Lucic, but yeah. Well, I was just looking at. I was bringing up his name before, Brian Rust. I mean, if we're talking about trying to find value contract, $5.125 million, 31 goals last year. I'd rather go for a guy like that got 31 goals last year than someone who's making $11 million. I mean, you could pick up two guys for that. I mean, if you got Pittsburgh to retain a little bit too, so I think that's more the kind of guy they should be going for. I think that's the best use of their money too. So, yeah, for size, I mean, yeah, you always want to have more size come playoff time, and I'm sure there's guys that we can find for cheaper and probably more effective than Milan Lucic. At least I would hope. Evander Kane coming back to the Oilers would be crazy at the trade deadline. I can't see Vancouver doing that, but if we can find guys that can be in the top 9 that could contribute in some way, that'd definitely be a target to keep an eye on come trade deadline for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I'll go back to Lotzi because he did some homework here.
And one guy whose name who came up for me was Alex DeBrincat. He's got 2 years left after this one, I believe, at just over $7 million. Former teammate of McDavid's and Jr. Detroit's a team that should probably be getting better results than they are right now. Should things continue to not go as well as they hope in a tough division, then you never know what shakes loose. So that's one intriguing option, but yeah, I love Puckpedia, but their free agent list is not the most user-friendly thing, so I apologize. Anders Lee is another guy in the Island. They're kind of going a little bit younger, and he's got 1 year left, $7 million, modified, no trade. So that's another possibility.
My understanding was that his modified no trade was exclusively Canadian teams. I believe that dude is an American boy, as you know, through and through. And that may be my incorrect recollection, but I seem to recall being asked about him before, and the answer was, yeah, no Canada.
So I was only half listening to Lotzi, and I'm pretty sure he just said that DeBrincat and Patrick Kane, Stan Bowman's favorite player, other than Don Taves, is coming over with him, so that'll be interesting. Kevin, you got anything else you want to go back to on that with Bowman?
Yeah, I just wanted to. Another thing that came up in the interview between Bob Stauffer and Bowman today was that how he's planning to spend assets, and that is he's not going to spend first round picks unless it's somebody with term. A little bit of term left, he said, I think was the exact wording, or somebody they can easily see getting re-signed at the end of their contract. Like, part of the deal was a real conversation with the dude, whoever it may be, that they were going to be able to work out a contract renewal, and it wasn't just a rental. I think the days of first for rentals are over, and I think that that's prudent asset management because this team has to be viable for years to come yet. Another point about Alex Tuch, by the way, on the way out the door is he had 36 goals last year. So, yeah, I would
36?
say that
36? Wow.
36 goals.
Okay, that's a top 6 player. I apologize.
22 the year before, and then 36 again the year before that. And he's been a little inconsistent for sure, but man can shoot. So I think that that might be a good fit. And I know that he's sort of a rental with being in the last year of his 7-year contract, but if they can agree in principle on a deal, that's definitely a guy I'm thinking about going after.
A guy like that might just want to re-sign in a freezing cold dump tire fire like Edmonton, Alberta.
I mean, he plays for Buffalo, man. Like,
it's an upgrade. Right, it's an upgrade. I've been to Buffalo. It's an upgrade. That's
the most impressive thing with Rust and Tuck is where they're playing. Like, they're putting up 31 goals, 36 goals on 2 really bad teams. Like, what can they do on a talented team like Edmonton?
And I mean, look at look at Buffalo specifically. I know Pittsburgh's got a little more pedigree than that, but Buffalo has been wallowing in mediocrity for a long time now. I'm sorry to say, and they don't
Mediocrity would
really.
be a compliment.
Well, but they've never been able to really to dig out of it, at least not in the last 15 or so years, right? And I don't know if that's a management thing. I don't know if that's an ownership thing, but at this point, again, if you're at the end of a 7-year contract and you've done lots of things, but the one thing that you haven't done is win, do you look for a change? And is it, going to a team that really wants a cup? Is that part of that calculus, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Our boy Quaddy's in the chat saying no rentals, exclamation mark. I do think a guy like that comes maybe on a year, or maybe it's a trade and sign or something like that. You never know that there's a lot of other options out there, but it would be an absolutely fantastic ad to get more depth that way. I would venture a guess that in some of those conversations that Stan Bowman alluded to that included Connor McDavid's thoughts on the future and where this team can go, I would venture to guess that included some content on mistakes made and first round picks out the door already that have maybe potentially been wasted, or prospects like Kesserling that kind of feel like they were just gone for nothing. And that has to be probably part of that conversation. I'm sure Connor McDavid has said, we can't waste first round picks anymore. If I'm going to be around long term, we're going to need that. So I agree completely there, boys. We missed saying goodbye to EST and being off the air. I think we were cut off probably around 10 o'clock there. So was right around in the middle of something intelligent Lotzi was saying, I think at 9:59. But I'm happy to keep going on YouTube for a while if you guys are.
And I'm just looking at their schedule. We might even still be on EST. So
Bam!
yeah, we're good to keep going regardless. But if nothing else for our lovely YouTube audience.
Well, our good friend Matthew Owanek knows that we're a bunch of blowhards that we're probably going to go on too long. So let's just appreciate the extra half an hour and work with it. I'm sure we can go till 10:30. All right. I want to get back to the call me crazy because I got one more that I think we need to touch on, and we've alluded to it a little bit here. But some of these contracts are getting crazy. I was absolutely shocked. Like I like Jackson. I like Jackson Lacombe's game. I really do. Come out of nowhere, great story. Probably taking over that blue line. I love the Hughes brothers story. I love the pedigree of the youngest brother usually being the best of the three. I love that Luke's a defenseman. Those two guys just got $9 million long-term contracts, $9 million AVV contracts. What the actual HE double hockey sticks? That, to me, now tells me, even though Darnell Nurse has been to blame for the traffic on Stony Plain Road, call me crazy, but I think Evan Bouchard and Darnell Nurse are on value contracts right now. Patrick?
Evan Bouchard is for sure, and the more the cap goes up, the better Darnell Nurse's contract looks. So, yeah, I'd say they're both on value contracts right now. I mean, Darnell Nurse was behind the 8 ball because he got that money too early, but as the cap goes up, that contract's going to look better and better, and if ultimately we do have to move it at some point, it's going to look easier for other teams to take on. So, yeah, and Evan Bouchard absolutely is on a value contract at 10.5. Constantly leads the Stanley Cup playoffs in points for defensemen. He's an offensive dynamo. He plays with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl effectively. I mean, not many players can do that, and he does that consistently. So, yeah, I'd say they're both on value contracts for sure.
Call me crazy, Lotzi, but I think we got both of those defensemen, Darnell Nurse and Evan Bouchard, on value contracts moving forward.
Yeah, I will call you crazy on that. I don't think there's many people that are going to argue that Nurse is on a value contract. I think I don't think it's as out of line as some other people do, but I do think 9.25 is a little too much for a Nurse. And as Patrick alluded to, as the cap goes up, that contract is going to look better and better and better. We aren't going to be complaining about it as much in the final few years of that deal as we have for the last 4 or 5 years or whatever, however long it's been. But I don't think it's fair to call Nurse's contract a value contract. And that's just the reality of the market right now with these young guys like Hughes and Jackson Lacombe getting over $9 million, right? It's just because they realize the cap is spiking and player salaries are spiking along with that. So it looks a little crazy right now, and there's some shock value for the average fan tuning in and saying, "Holy cow, who got that much?" But that's just the way it's going to be for the next couple of years until the cap is done spiking here. We're going to see some numbers that are surprising.
Absolutely. The going price for a defenseman in their prime right now is very clearly being set at the $9 million mark, or before these guys hit their prime. And that's in the year 25-26 for this season. The cap goes up 10 million and then another 10 million. The going price for defenseman is then 11 or 12 next year, and then it's 13 or 14 next year. And by the time Darnell Nurse is at the end of his contract, the going rate for a solid top 2 to top 4 defenseman is going to be $13-14 million a year, and he'll be at 9.25. So with all due respect, I hear you, Justin, in the chat, but I ain't smoking nothing, bro. I think it's going to be a value contract. I think Darnell Nurse is one of the most underrated players in the league, even though he's one of the most bitched about what he provides in a top 4. Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
I was just going to say, like, obviously it didn't start as a value contract. It was an overpay of a contract, but my point was, and as we've kind of alluded to here, like, it's going to grow into a value contract. And I'd say Bouchard's is a value contract right now. So maybe to his point, yeah, like, it didn't start out as a value contract.
Yeah. I kind of lost where I was in the order. Did I get to everybody? Kevin, did you call me crazy yet?
Oh, well, I am going to call you crazy. I got to say, the Nurse contract is an overpay. It's been an overpay since the outset. I think it's fair to say that by the end of that contract, it won't be as much of an overpay. But I just, in terms of the value returned relative to how much money has been invested in that, like if you look at it year over year, I think that there has not been as much value as achieved as, maybe could have been. I think if they would have got Nurse at 7.5, we would be having a different conversation right now. But it's been an overpay since the outset, and if the only time we break even on it is the last couple of years, then that doesn't really demonstrate good value. The Bouchard one is a slam dunk as long as he continues to stay healthy and continues to produce. I kind of cringe to see what his next contract is going to be, because I think the sum of it is going to be eye-watering. Yeah, I would agree with Ace in the chat there. I think Nurses started out at about a 4 million overpay, and it's been trending less. But even last year, I think it was about 2 based on what I saw out of Dom's values. And I think it's been 2 year out of year for a while now. And you know what? I understand why they made that mistake. They just lost Oscar Klefblom. They didn't know what Evan Bouchard was. They lost their number 1 defenseman, and the prospects of finding a defenseman at that time was about the same as our prospect of finding a goalie now, which is, to say the least, not that great. So they sort of panic bought what they had and what they knew. And, we've argued about the value of that ever since. I also think it's safe to say that Nurse gets slandered an awful lot in terms of, what his actual value is. I think he was on for very limited goals against throughout the finals and through the later stages of the playoffs. And I think that's the best measure of defenseman. I would like to see a little more offensive production out of him, but that's not really ever been his style, at least certainly not recently.
Yeah, I love what's going on in the chat here. A couple times they've taken something right off the tip of my tongue, and of course it's Quaddy and Ace, who are like two of my boys and two of our regulars here. So I love it. Yeah, you guys nailed it. Nurse started out about $4.5 million overpaid. What everybody also forgets is that he was stupidly bridged twice.
Yeah.
You know, he was underpaid for 4 years, and then he went into this stupid COVID Canadian season and absolutely dominated the other Canadian teams in this weird abbreviated fashion. And all of a sudden, he's 7th in Norris voting. He was the 7th best defenseman in the league. People forget that.
But 9.25 even at that time was crazy money.
It
right?
wasn't though, Kevin. I disagree, because it was the 4 guys right before that and the weeks before. I'll never forget it. Josh Morrissey, Heiskanen, McCovey,
Seth Jones was the one that actually set the whole market for that.
Yes, because Seth Jones got traded, and then they went, well, we kept who was it, Werenski or whatever instead, and they're like, well, if Jones just got 9, well, we got to give Werenski more, and then Heiskanen signs, and then Morrissey signs, and then McCovey signs, and Darnell Nurse just got 7th in Norris voting. He deserved what those guys got, in my opinion, at that point in time, but
it was a heater.
He didn't, because it was this stupid COVID easy season. His stats were weird. Yeah, he ends up getting overpaid. I agree. But I do feel over the course of this and where we're going with these salaries that he will be
It'll be fine by the end of it. It'll be fine by the end of it. It's and that's not the point. The point is that in terms of outright value, Evan Bouchard is running away with that even at $10.5 million, right? Of the two, if you ask me which one is more value, no question, it's Evan Bouchard. That kid is a unicorn, and I don't care what anybody has to say about him. He is, I would say, arguably a top 3 defenseman in the league. And I saw some crazy shit the other day too, where somebody said that they were, that he was only in the top 10, and if he stopped making so many defensive mistakes, how many defensive mistakes out of the final, besides the final game of the season, or of the playoffs, did he make? He had a horrendous game 5 or game 6 or whatever it was. So no mistake.
5.
But I also think he was hurt by that point. And there was speculation that came out after the season was done that the doctors felt on several occasions that he was not going to play, and he played anyways. So I think he was nursing a lower body injury for the very large bulk of the postseason, and he played through a lot to get the team to where it was. I think that he wasn't really making that many mistakes in the playoffs, and he gets a lot more heat about cough ups than he really should.
Yeah, I'm going to use the chat. Sorry, Lozzie, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. And we might be thinking the same thing. Ekholm. Ekholm did not come back at 100% when he came back.
Not even close.
There's one play I know people are ragging on Bouchard and Ekholm for, well, more Bouchard than Ekholm. It was in game 6. Ekholm fired a pass at Bouchard's thigh from about 20 feet.
And it turned into a
It was a grenade, and it was a turnover, ended up in the back of the Oilers' net, and Florida won in a rout in that game. But that was on Ekholm. That was a terrible pass. Like, nobody on this planet was corralling that thing. I'm sorry. I don't put that on Bouchard. So, and I've even seen it in the preseason. The last game, there was a couple of mistakes that Ekholm made that led to goals against, and Bouchard didn't look great because of it. So I'm more worried about Ekholm than anybody, but that's getting away from our topic of conversation, which is the value deals. And I wanted to make a point about Nurse as well. There's been a lot of seasons, like we're pushing a handful of seasons where he's been a top 20 defenseman in terms of even strength scoring output. So that boosts the argument for his 9.25. Now, at the time of that signing, he was probably he was like top 5 or top 10 in terms of actual money going out to defensemen. Did being top 20 in regular even strength scoring among D warrant that? Maybe not, but I think for those reasons, I don't think that he was overpaid by 4.5, as some people are saying. I think he's overpaid by like $1 million or $2 million max. So I still don't think Nurse is a value deal, but it's not as bad as people think.
Yeah, you're fair. Okay, look, we got about 13 minutes before we wrap up at 10:30. My final thought on that is Nurse scored 3 in the preseason, so he's obviously getting 30 goals this year. That helps my argument. All right, I'm going to go back to the chat for one more and segue that way. I kind of just thought of it on the spot here, but we've been asked several times how the McDavid signing today is going to affect, future signings or future superstar signings, like, either it's Kyle Connor or Jack Eichel per se. So I'm going to kind of make this one up on the spot because I've had this kind of thorn in my side listening to this all day, that because McDavid took this discount that he's going to throw a grenade into all the negotiations for all these other players. And once again, like, I'll throw another loony in the swear jar, but I think it's bullshit. McDavid's a unicorn. You said Bouchard's a unicorn. That's, it's true. As a defenseman, McDavid's the unicorn, and that gets treated differently. Nobody else gets a contract put in front of them, and they just say, here, sign. Tell us how much you want and how many years, and we'll sign. That doesn't affect Jack Eichel and Kyle Connor and Kaprizov or guys like that, in my opinion. I think Dustin Nielsen said it best on Twitter and on air today, is if Jack Eichel has to take $14 million because of what Connor McDavid just did, then he should fire his agent. Plain and simple. So call me crazy, but Connor McDavid signing for $12.5 million makes absolutely zero difference on what the rest of the superstars in the league will sign for there after this. Patrick?
Yeah, I 100% agree. You're not crazy at all. McDavid's, like you said it, McDavid's a unicorn. So the other guys are going to have to set the market. And I think Kaprizov signing that contract, although it didn't really affect Connor too much, I think it took some of the pressure off by, okay, somebody else said the salary's going up, so I don't have to do that. I can take I think ultimately he was going to take whatever money he wanted to take anyway, but I think Kaprizov signing that contract did help him out. So I don't think Connor signing that is going to have any effect on anybody else. He's the unicorn, like you said. So yeah, I don't really have anything else to add to that.
Ultimately, I think they think these guys talk. I would almost guarantee you he said, guys, I'm going to release this on the day before the season starts. You got up until then to sign your deals. I'm taking a discount. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents and my little crazy theory, but you can call me crazy if you want, Ryan Lotzberg.
I'm not going to do it this time. I agree with you on this one. What McDavid did today has nothing to do with, it's going to have no impact on Eichel or Connor or anybody else that's signing this year. If anything, Kaprizov sent the market for what's going to happen over the next 2 years. Or 3 seasons, I guess, once we hit 113 plus potentially on the salary cap. But I'm going to add this caveat to it. So, Kaprizov set the market for now, but I don't think the market's truly set yet because the cap hasn't fully risen yet. Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews will set the market in 2028.
You just made me think of something, like by saying Kaprizov just set the market. If I put you guys in a time machine back to 2 weeks ago and told you that a guy that wears number 97 on his jersey, there's 2 of them, and one of them's going to sign for 2 years at 12.5, and the other one's going to sign for 17 for 8, who would be Kirill and who would be Connor? Like, this is asinine. Kevin McCurdy, you get the last option to call me crazy tonight if you'd like. I'm not sure you will, but
No. No,
What do you?
not doing it this time. This you earned your freedom this time. It's I think that the Kirill Kaprizov thing is I'm not sure it's precedent setting. Minnesota's always been an interesting place to get players to stay and want to play. I'm not surprised uh the re-up on that was huge. I honestly thought it was hilarious when he rolled out with Bill Guerin, and somebody asked if he was excited, and Bill Guerin basically said he can better be. And
Yeah.
that was really it
What
was
a
a real
beauty.
Bill Guerin moment.
Yeah.
But
Well said. Yeah.
I think that McDavid's contract will have literally no impact on anybody else in the league. He is allowed to do whatever he wants, and especially now that he's basically not towed the NHLPA line and done what's best for him, winning a Stanley Cup. I don't think anybody's going to really second guess him on that too much, and I also don't think it weighs into the Jack Eichel conversation at all. I think it's just such an outside data point that both teams and agents are just going to be like, "Yep, that doesn't matter."
Yeah, I think we went around the horn there pretty much in agreement. I'll give Quaddy one more chance just because he's a regular. And don't you guys think that the cap crunching GMs weren't waiting for this bargaining chip? Maybe. I'm sorry. Like, with all due respect, Quaddy, I don't. It doesn't matter.
It's a unicorn deal. It's it's like getting uppity about Crosby taking 8.7 million, right? Like, he is on his own planet, and he gets to decide the rules of his own planet, and it has no bearing on anybody who is in any way lesser than him, right? As far as like caliber of player goes. The same thing went for Crosby. The same thing goes for McDavid. I mean, you could probably make that case for a Nathan McKinnon or a Leon Draisaitl potentially, but even those guys are still playing by most of the rules that everybody else is. I think it's sort of limited universally to like franchise level players, and even then, most of them will choose to get paid over choosing to win, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
I completely agree.
I think the GM might look and say, "Hey, McDavid took this team-friendly deal. You should do that too if you really want to win." And the players and the agents are going to come back with, "Well, Kaprizov gets 17, so I should be worth this much." Right? It's like the agents are going to defer to the highest contract that's out there if they're players in that echelon. And GMs saying, if you want to win, you'll do what McDavid did, isn't as strong of an argument, because the player will just screw off and go get his market value elsewhere. Like, I don't think it's the strong bargaining chip that some people might think it is.
Yeah, I go right back to Dustin's comment to close that off. And if your agent can't get you that money that Kirill set the market at, then fire him. All right, we got 4, maybe 5 minutes left. I think that's enough time to go around the horn here for one last comment. I'll make mine, and then I'll just shut up, kind of like Michael does. Then maybe we'll go Kevin, Lotzi, and our Oilers fanatic for the last word tonight. I would just like to say that the kind of thing we didn't really touch on tonight that's been talked a lot about is this 2-year term. I think everybody outside of this market is still going to jump on the, it's too short, and he's going to leave if they don't win. I don't believe that. I don't. His best friends are locked up. I mentioned it earlier. And this team, and no other, this team is second in the last 2 years combined. They're second in playoff wins, and they're fourth in regular season wins. Like, there's no better wagon to jump on than the Edmonton Oilers. You got the 2 best players in the world, and in back-to-back runs to the Cup Finals. I don't think he'll leave. I don't. If he does, it's because we haven't won a cup. And after what he's done, taking $12.5 million, I will tip my cap to Connor McDavid, say thank you for your time here. I respect the hell out of you. good luck in your future endeavors, and I'll mean it with all my heart. I will respect that move. Kevin, last words, bud.
I just to sort of extend your point. I think Bob Stauffer alluded that this might be an outcome where they just sign a series of shorter contracts that are, cap flexible as far as allowing the Oilers to build the best possible roster while still representing the value that McDavid sees in himself. But what people have to remember that McDavid's earning potential is way more than your average player, right? Like he's one of the faces of the league. His endorsement deals are worth a fortune to him. So at the end of the day, the salary that he pulls out of his team engagements is less important to him than it would be to most players. Most players are not rocking, CIBC endorsement deals and allo deals and whatever else. And sure, lots of them are, but I think there's probably no other players in the league that bring in as much endorsement money as he does. So he's got a way to earn his bucks without necessarily having to do it via his NHL salary. And I think that that's probably from a purely financial security space. He's not worried about that at all. And he's more worried about being able to put rings on his shelf and lift tin than it is about the dollars and cents of it. I really respect him for this move. I really hope that he's earned some more respect with the Oilers fan base, and I hope some people are feeling a little uncomfortable with how they've treated McDavid in the last little bit. Because to your point, if he decides in 3 or 4 years that he's headed elsewhere because we still haven't won a cup, he's earned that privilege at that point, and he's done everything that he as an individual can possibly do to make a cup come back to Edmonton, and good luck to him. That man bleeds blue and orange. It's pretty clear that he wants to lift tin here. I say we, get in line, follow the captain, right? I think that's as simple as that.
He's won every trophy you could win in this league,
Yeah.
except for that one, right, Kev?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you were one of the biggest proponents of this the entire, at least you and I were in private chats. I know that you were the biggest proponent to this has to get done before the season, right?
Yeah, it was going to be a huge distraction. It was going to be a massive distraction for every second that it got left undone. It doesn't matter what McDavid said about his team should be bigger than that. It was going to be a huge distraction, and every reporter in every city was going to ask him about his contract until it was signed. I just want a quick shout out to Klima's Lid. He's made a good point. Lauren is establishing her brands and businesses here in Edmonton. And yeah, sure, it's she could run it from New York or wherever, but she's pretty hands-on from everything that what I've heard from her, especially when it comes to the restaurant. So I think it's telling that she continues, and they as a couple continue to lay down more roots in this city.
I mean, there's a chance he could have a kid by the time that next
Yep.
contract's up, right? And then now that starts to affect, when you want to move and how you want to move. And I think Lauren's an excellent point, and even the fact that Connor's going to be doing some tree planting. Sorry, I won't go there. I'm just kidding. Yeah, well said, Kev. I appreciate all of that for sure. Lotsy, what do you think?
I'm not overly worried about the 2-year term either. As Kevin pointed to, a series of short-term contracts is possible, but the way I've been looking at it is with the cap rising, he'd be stupid to lock in at a long-term rate right now, because it would have cost the Oilers a lot more for him to do so, and he would have missed out on a lot more money than what he sacrificed this time by signing long-term right now. So he could still sign long-term in 2028 if he so chose, but he could also do a series of short-term deals. But just the fact that this guy decided to take this big of a discount right now by keeping his dollar figure flat and reducing the percentage of cap he's taken up, it just shows you who he is as a person, right? He's more focused on winning and putting his team in a position to win than he is about himself, because he's got more than enough money to get by. He's got he earned $100 million on his last deal, and he's gonna earn 25 more on this next deal, right? money isn't a factor in his life, and that just shows you what he is as a person and as a leader. And we're lucky to have him in oil country. It's just that simple. I also want to touch on the Walman extension. We didn't talk a lot about him throughout the show, but that's also a significant signing. And only on a day like today would that be second page news. In other news, the Oilers signed Jake Walman to a 7x7 extension. Um, we locked up a high quality top 4 D man that can play either side for the next 7 years. So that's a really versatile player, and that's a significant impact signing. So he'll be 36 when the deal's done. Might be a little old for some people's liking, but for a guy like him, I don't think it's a big deal. So yeah, other than that, excited for Wednesday, and I got pieces up on both extensions today on the Heavy Hockey Network, so give those a read. And with that, I'll pass it over to Patrick.
Well, first, I'm just gonna say that I got a new listener in the chat, Charlie. Thanks for coming. Appreciate that, and appreciate you saying you like the show. I'm gonna use that as a segue, guys. Smash that thumbs up on. Please, just give us a little bit of the algorithm bump. We love it. We appreciate it. Michael usually says good night, or is the trigger to end the show, because I got the Oilers fanatic taken off on the last word tonight. Let's end it off with thank you for being a fan, and that'll be our cue to cut. Patrick, last word's yours, buddy.
Well, I just want to end this with a huge thank you to Connor McDavid. I know you're probably watching tonight. You wanted to catch what we thought about your contract, and we're just I speak for all of Oil Country when we say we are eternally grateful. Yeah. Number 97, thank you. And while we're throwing out thank yous, thank you to Jake Walman as well. Another fantastic deal. And I also just wanted to mention as well, was at a funeral for a friend I lost today, Dave Gall. So just want to say his name there one more time. Put best wishes out there. Gonna miss your smiles there, buddy. So on behalf of everyone, thank you for being in the chat tonight. It was a great day. Thank you all for being a fan.